Well, hello, everybody. We are now live on LinkedIn, and I'm super excited because I have, I think, some people that'll be on the show today that will be really helpful for those who either were furloughed or those who may have been laid off. And it's a resource. I might not normally go here with resumes and branding, but I think it's important that we show up and support and all of us support each other because we are in this together. So I want to now take an opportunity to introduce you to um, Lynda Spiegel. She and I have known each other. Hello there, dear.
Hi.
We've known each other for quite some time. We've on LinkedIn long time, and then we met each other at the No Longer Virtual Conference with Sarah Elkins. And Lynda's main focus is helping people with kind of career transitions with resume. And so she's gonna help and give some tips, and we're gonna talk about what she offers in that regard. And then there's also Marietta. Hello there.
Hello.
And she's another one that I've known for quite a long time. And I've just had this idea to bring them together because I think this whole career transition, the resumes, the personal branding, LinkedIn, and just overarchingly personal branding, just a good topic to be talking about, especially given all the layoffs that have happened related to COVID. And so we want to be relevant with the topics, and I wanted to bring them forward. So welcome.
Thank you for having us, Heather. It's a pleasure.
To be here with two of my favorite ladies.
Well, okay. So, Lynda, I'm curious to know. I want to know first. Let's talk about what it is that you offer people that, like, right now during this time of COVID. What are your offerings? What do you do normally for folks, and then what would you do even now? And then the same thing will go to you, Maria, after that. So I'd love to hear that.
Sure. So I offer resume writing and LinkedIn profile optimization. So when I say optimization, we want to make sure that the search engine optimization for your profile, we want to make sure you come up on page 1 for any employer or recruiter who's looking for someone like you. And I think what's not different, if I can just approach that from another angle, what's not different is that there are going to be a lot of employment gaps because millions of people are out of work, millions. So you're not alone. So there's no stigma whatsoever. We don't have to explain this. Anyone who sees that your employment ended in 2020, we know why.
Ooh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
The other day I had someone who'd recently been furloughed, and she had shared with me, and this person was getting unemployment, and she had shared with me that someone, pretty much said, well, unemployment's a handout. And it left her feeling really jaded. It left her just feeling really bad about herself. And so I appreciate that perspective, Lynda, that, you know what, you won't have to explain much because people already know that. And so don't feel bad. Don't feel like you have to overdo that during this time when you're having to look at things. Just know that people will understand and they're going to be there with you. So I appreciate that perspective. Absolutely. Awesome. And then what about you, Maria? What is it that you focus on? And then is there something that you would change in the way that you focus and help people focus on their brand now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I work with service-based business owners and senior level professionals express their brand in a way that stands out. A lot of times we're all in, a lot of people do the same thing, right? So it's about how do you find what feels real to you? How do you express yourself, whether your ideas are via video or via written articles? How do you express your ideas in a ways that are clear, confident, credible, and carefree, which I call my 4 C's of personal branding. And when we think about what's going on right now, I agree with Lynda, where there are things that are not different. Like I say, everyone's like, right now it's very uncertain times. And I can't really remember when times were certain, although these are definitely different times. So what I think is more the focus right now, I think, is for whether you're a business owner or you're a career professional looking for a new job, it's your messaging and making sure that you're pivoting your message to be timely and relevant to what's going on.
Can I add on to that, Heather?
Yes, please do.
Yeah, so what Marietta said is so important. And the word that I bring that really sums up what she says is, how do you differentiate yourself? Because as Marietta pointed out, there are thousands of attorneys, there are thousands of marketing people. There are thousands of accountants. So what makes you different? And if you just look at the functions that you perform, there's not going to be a lot of variation. So Marietta calls it personal branding. I kind of call it professional branding, but we're really talking about the same thing. How do you differentiate yourself? And what I do on resumes is create a value proposition that's completely unique to that client. So it's all about how you're branding yourself.
I want to just take a moment. I see that there's a couple people that have actually said hi in the comments. So everybody else who's on there, make sure you say hi. And also, this is an interactive session, so please ask questions specific to resumes, career transition, also any branding topics that you have, because we understand that there are many people who have been impacted right now through COVID. Whether you have your own business, the business has decreased, you're trying to figure out how to re-pivot some things, some just pivoting ideas. Whether you were an employee and you were laid off, even if you're in a furlough situation, you may be thinking, oh, maybe this is a good time to make a move or make a jump. These are some of the conversations that we want to be having, and we want to make sure that you are a part of that. So ask those questions in there, and then of course tell me who's there. So hello, Ollie, good to see you, and Lori, awesome to see you too. Anybody else who's out there, please let us know you're there. Okay, so going back to that, this idea of folks, let's say folks they're in furlough, and they didn't particularly like where they worked before. So what's a good way for them to be thinking about this as far as maybe even pivoting? Because they may be, if they're in furlough and they're still in furlough, they may be receiving unemployment. This might be the perfect opportunity to be thinking differently about what they always dreamed of and actually taking steps in that direction. So I don't know, who wants to go first on that?
I'm going to go first because I'm going to turn it over to Marietta anyway.
Okay.
The more, when people call me and say, well, I'm not sure what I want to do next, but please write my resume. I always say, you're not ready for a resume. You better know who you are, what your brand is or your value proposition is, and then we can write a resume, because resumes are marketing tools. And unless, you don't write a resume that's a history of what you've done. It's not the autobiography of your vocational life, right? So you want to have it very targeted to what it is you want to do. And I would turn that over to Marietta to say, what is it? Who are you? And I think a branding program helps you figure that out. So I would say what Marietta does comes before what I do, especially if you've been furloughed or you're just considering a career pivot anyway.
Love it.
Do you agree, ladies?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you, Lynda. It really is about taking it beyond titles. And I know, even as someone who talks a lot about branding and saying, just as Lynda said, it's about who you are, what you do, who you help. At the end of the day, we get the titles are good. We need titles, right? Because we need to know how to identify ourselves as far as what we do. And we need to be able to have people find us, right? But at the end of the day, titles also can be this self-imposed box. So especially when you're making a career transition, or even people who are looking at this opportunity to say, you know what, I want to be a consultant. I want to start my own business. When you look at your title and you say, oh, but I'm a systems administrator, or I'm an educator, and you look at just that title, then you think the leap into that next step seems very far. But when you look at who you are as far as your personal brand attributes, those are characteristics. Those are pieces of your personality. This is your brand story. This is what you need to pull from at this time, because when you pull from your story and your experiences and what makes you unique, then your title really doesn't mean anything. And that's where you open up opportunities to basically pivot in ways that maybe you didn't think about a year ago or 3 months ago, actually.
Ooh.
Or a month ago.
There's so much there. There's so much I want to just unpack real fast. Sorry, Lynda, I want to unpack it, then you can unpack it too.
No, I thought that was great.
So this idea of story, I've heard people really want to turn their back on their story or deny their story. And you don't have to tell the whole story. Sometimes it's elements of the story. But that story is a thing that people remember. And whether it's an employer who you're looking to, land your next gig with, or again, having your own business, it's that story that brings people in and makes people remember you. And that is a big differentiating factor. So I love that idea of the story. The other thing, I just forgot what the other thing was. Oh, I know. Nope. The other thing was, I remember as you're saying this, I've known you for many years. And as you're saying this, I am remembering your journey. And I know where you came from, and I've seen how you've kind of unfolded all the things you just talked about. And so, one of the things that drives me bonkers is to see someone who's consulting or like teaching, and they've never done this themselves. And
Right.
so, you have the personal experience of those who maybe are working in a job now. They'd like to walk away from. They'd like to pivot. They'd like to change, and then the steps that you take to actually get there. So, I think you're a perfect example of that, Marietta. So I appreciate you. Being here and sharing all this amazing advice that I know is hard earned.
And
Sure.
Heather, I just have to give you a shout out also, because I know your story too. And what I love about you is that you used to be a lawyer. Like, I mean, that is amazing. And I love things like that, because it's just like from lawyer to keynote TEDx motivational speaker, you really just kind of burst out of boxes of what people expect, and you don't hide it. And that's the same thing with me, just to your point. When I was in corporate and I was building my business on the side for 7 years, while I was working, in various roles, it was hard. It was challenging. I couldn't happen enough. But at the same time, a lot of what I've learned working within these corporate companies actually has made me a better person. And those experiences are what helped me, connect with that next person. And those experiences, what's going to help someone else. I know someone who she's doing like nonprofit, and she ran all the little jobs that when she was explaining, she's like, oh, I didn't really do anything that special. I just did a little fundraising and did this. And I'm like thinking, your story is amazing. So I think people need to understand that regardless of what you're doing, your past is a part of who you are. And instead of like throwing it away or thinking that you have to create this new version of yourself, embrace what has made you who you are today as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And of course, since I've known both of you so long, I know both of your stories, and mine, which is that I was an executive HR professional. So I was pretty senior. I did global human resources in a bunch of different industries. And then it occurred to me, who better, I'm the audience for a resume, so who better to write it? But but one thing that you just said, both of you said, and I say this to my clients all the time, you are the sum total right now at this moment of all of your experiences and expertise. Okay, so that's what, just to branch off a little bit, some people say, well, should I have a separate version of my resume for each position I'm applying to? And my answer would be no, not unless you have multiple personality disorders or that sum total, right? And your entire, Heather was an attorney, and she brings that sensibility to what she does now. You were in sort of like IT-ish kind of,
yeah.
Right, as I recall, because I remember when we met, you were just you were on the verge of leaving corporate to start your own practice, and you bring that sensibility as I bring my background in human resources to helping people get jobs. So I think that's incredibly important points.
There's so much richness there. Let me go to the comments and see what there. I know I can see Donna Louise. I believe me, I have not ignored you. I see you there. What I really wish is that LinkedIn would allow StreamYard to let us show all the comments right inside this stream.
I know I can't see it. Yeah,
I know. So I'll read them out.
Hi, Donna Louise.
David, hello there. I'm glad you're encouraged by the conversation. So Donna Louise says, she said, yes, your story is what helps connect with your experiences. And then she says, with me, you can never believe that the lawyer part in isolation, but it adds to your whole story, Heather. Hello there, Mary. I love to see you guys joining. So whoever else is out there, just let us know, what's going on. And if you have questions, specific questions, because you have, these are two leading experts, both in the career transition and the resume side and the personal branding, professional branding, and LinkedIn and all kinds of things. And so, ask whatever questions. If you are one of those people that might be in transition or you're looking to make a pivot, whatever those might be, ask the questions now and they'll answer them. Now you'll see pivoting across the scrolling across the bottom of that screen, I have a way for you to get a hold of both of them. And so I have that there purposely. So for some reason it keeps scrolling, you can't write it down, you'll have access to that. And that is because I believe in this time, we're all in this together. And then and we're all business owners, the three of us. And so I wanted to be able to help all of them in any way I can, as far as just promoting the services. And these services are in big need right now, given where we're at right now with furloughs and layoffs and all kinds of things. I remember, so a lot of you don't know this, but I worked my business Customer Fanatics as what we call a side hustle for 2.5 years before I actually did it on my own. And now this October will be 3 years on my own full time. And I haven't looked back since. But when I was doing that, it was really hard. I was writing a book. I was working 40 hours a week. I have 4 kids. They were spread across the town. I was traveling a lot for that, for my business, because I was consulting and traveling. And I felt like I was going to go into a straitjacket. It was crazy. And so, but then I made that move and I said, okay, I think it's time for me to do it. I think there's obviously, because I'd proven it out. So it's kind of a proof of concept idea. If you're someone who believes in that, I proved the concept out, because as I was working full time and doing this, my business got as busy as the day job. And I'm like, it's time to just make this move. But right now, if you're someone who, for example, is getting unemployment and getting some extra benefits, and maybe you're kind of sitting well for these next 4 months, maybe this is a time to be thinking, was there something I've always wanted to do? Or is there another direction I wanted to take? And maybe it's a time to start thinking about that. What are your thoughts about that, ladies?
Yeah. So, Taylor Pearson was pretty well known for writing a book called The End of Jobs. Now this is against my own best interests, but I feel I should say it. His point is that when you're an employee, you're like a turkey on the farm before Thanksgiving. Everything's fine. You go to the trough, the farmer put feed there for you, and everything's cool. You're hanging out with all your turkey friends. And then it's the day before Thanksgiving, and here comes the farmer with an axe. And as the HR person, I can tell you, because I used to get pit in my stomach on Sunday nights when I knew I had to reduce force Monday morning, and I'd see these perfectly innocent people walking by, talking about the game the night before and what they did over the weekend, and I'd have to call them into my office and ruin, not just their day, but God knows how long. Mm-hmm. When you have your own business, as the three of us do, and all three of us were employees, you don't get fired. Nobody can fire you when you have your own business, and you can pivot much more easily to respond to changes in the environment. And I don't think there has ever in our lifetimes been a more radical change in the environment. So there's that to consider. It may be time to do that. But I want to say, before I let Marietta get a word in edgewise here, if you're not in a position or interested in becoming a solopreneur, don't let this time when you're being furloughed or you're unemployed, don't just sit there. First of all, I want to say that collecting unemployment is your right. It's not a handout. And nobody should be ashamed for using it. But do projects that we can put on your resume during this gap period. And it doesn't have to be for money. When I was a stay-at-home mom and English teacher in local high schools, I wanted to go back to Wall Street, where I had been in marketing communications. But I hadn't worked, and it was the 90s. There was no social networks, right? I hadn't kept in touch with anyone from Wall Street. So I started calling public companies and asking for their annual reports. And then I took them and I rewrote a section of them. And I emailed that to the investor relations person or the CFO. And I said, this is a sample of what I could do for your next annual report. I might have done 50 of those. And I got hired to do 3, which is not a bad return. But the point is, I had on my resume and wrote annual reports for. And it didn't matter that I didn't get paid for it. And it didn't matter that 47 of them didn't even respond to me. I had them to show people I wasn't lying. So think about that if you're furloughed and you're not interested in going out on your own.
That's a really, really good point. And the other side of that too is the interim. And one of my favorite terms that I've used and I've written about that I learned from William Arruda. When I think about personal branding, a lot I've learned from my training under William Arruda and his certifications. And the first time I heard the word intrapreneur, I was so like, ooh, that sounds good. What is that? I like that. Fancy, it's provocative. Yeah. And basically it's someone, because not everybody is fit for to be self-employed and to be entrepreneurs. It's not easy, as much as you'll see some people on Instagram or LinkedIn and just say, oh, my life is perfect, and I just sit in coffee shops all day and type and go on the beach and make six figures. It's a lot of work, right? Either way. But there are people who we need people in all areas, right? We need entrepreneurs, we need intrapreneurs. And what I love about what an intrapreneur is, which is basically an employee that uses their skills within a corporation to help advance the company's vision, but is an individual who really stands out on their own because of their skills. That is an important asset to keep in mind as well, because when you're doing it, even I loved your turkey example, Lynda. It's perfect, and I'll never look at a Thanksgiving turkey same way because of that. But when you think about it, you can be within a position and take all that you can that a company is willing to offer, right? So that means that even I remember when I was working for the city and I was a trainer, there was this new system that came out, and I had the pleasure of training a bunch of people who had no desire to learn the system because it was not in their job description. And one of the things I would tell them is that this system here is something that many corporations and companies and agencies use. You learning this system is going to make you more valuable and make you have a better advantage, because at the end of the day, all these projects that you're taking, all the certifications, everything that you're learning is only going to help you as well. So when you think, if you're within a company and you feel like, oh, well, I just don't want to do too much. I mean, not to go crazy either, but also think about how these skills and these projects are also building your own portfolio that you can use to forward your brand.
And just to riff on that, let's say you're not employed right now, as so many millions of people are experiencing. What a great time to learn some new software skills. It's the perfect time, and then you have a very marketable skill to put on your resume.
Oh, I love that. Okay, I'm going to go to the questions because all of a sudden they started pouring in, or at least go to the comment. I'm not sure what's here. We'll see. Okay, so one of the questions was, where did it go? Okay. When someone has a resume and they have, one has many resumes that may speak to similar work experience, how can one refine them to be more current and be more general as opposed to be more specific to a position?
Okay, I think, as I said earlier, I don't believe in ever having multiple versions of your resume. I think what you do is focus less on functions under each job and curate out, and it doesn't matter how far back it goes as long as it showcases a relevant skill, but curate a list of anywhere from 5 to 10 very, very specific things you did that showcase how well you do what you do. So instead of saying, I'm a great communicator, or, I'm a team player or something, you give an example of how you affected change, or you negotiated with senior management to accomplish something, or if you were in sales, some kind of major win, show a problem and how you solved it. And that's how I would create one cohesive resume that focuses less on functions than on what you bring to the table.
That's great. And then there's a question from David. I struggle with how to start the transition. I have great thoughts about customer service experience, but just not sure how to get to the next step and the resources to help me. I don't know, Marietta, if you want to take some of that, since I know you did the transition out too recently.
Yeah, I think you start small. You start by really, the first step in any type of career transition is to really take a good assessment of where you are right now and think about what are your skills? What do people say about you? And you can do that formally through, there's 360 assessments. There's a lot of assessments out there, but also you can do it informally by just asking people, right? Like, what do you think stands out about me from the next person? Because it's really important to understand what makes you unique, what stands out to other people. And then an important thing is to understand what are your burnout attributes. So those are the things that you're really, really good at, but maybe it's not going to help you move forward in a right way, because you can maybe be really good at math, but the thought of, sitting in front of a computer crunching numbers all day makes you want to bang your head against the wall. Did we lose Heather?
It looks like we did. Oh no.
Oh, okay.
But that was an excellent point. I mean,
yeah.
And I think a lot of people miss out on the idea of what is it you don't want to do.
Right.
Which is sort of funny. I run into that not infrequently with my resume clients. They'll say, well, I never want to do X again. And then they'll say, why did you leave that off my resume? And the answer is, well, if you never want to do it again, why are we talking about it?
Exactly. Exactly.
Say, like one of the things I used to hate doing was responding to RFPs, requests for. We were talking while you were gone. and I know
that was really strange. And then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened, but now I see comments in the stream right on here where I never saw them before. So I'm even though I hate what just happened, I'm excited that the other thing that just happened.
but really, if you don't want to do, you're right, Marietta. If understand not only what it is you want to do, but what you don't want to do.
Right. Just taking a good assessment of where you are right now, and then seeing where there are any gaps, right? So you look at your personal brand, you look at your experience, everything that you have, and then you say, okay, in order to get into this next phase that I want to do, what do I have that I know is going to be a clear match? That I can talk to, that I can prove and show, because especially to Lynda's point, you want to show, not tell. So if everybody's talking about how they have proven detailed skills, results-oriented team players, all the buzzwords, right, Lynda? You want to remove that and then say, okay, so other people who are doing what I want to do, what do they have? Right? Because it's okay. Like, you don't want to get too caught up in what other people are doing, but it's good to get a gauge of your industry, what is current and what you need to get there. And you take it in small steps, because when everything is coming to you at once and you're thinking, oh, I got to do this and I have to make money and I have to do this, it can get very overwhelming. But if you take it in small pieces where you're just like, okay, step one, let me really figure out and take a step back, breathe and see where I'm standing. Step two, let me see what I don't want to do so I don't move into a direction that is not going to be satisfying. Step three, what are other people having that I need to make sure I have? Step four, get it. And then go from there in really small steps.
So here's a good way to work on step three. And it's something I do with my clients. Go out there and look at jobs that are posted. And I don't care if these jobs, if it says we're no longer accepting applications, we're not doing this because you're going to apply for the job. We're going to do this to work into Marietta's step three. So read those job postings and then understand what these kinds of employers, what your kind of target jobs or employers are looking for. It might be a skill set, like a software skill set. It might be an experiential requirement, and then you can do step four and get it. But know what's out there that so you're matching what your brand to what's the kinds of jobs that are out there.
And to Heather's point, when you shared this post, and thank you for doing this and giving us the opportunity to share and bounce off of each other to answer these questions. But one of the words that you use, and I always think of one of my other favorite people, Sarah Elkins, is intentional, right? Being very intentional about your actions. And the only way that you could be intentional about your actions is being super, super clear about what you want and what you don't want.
Absolutely.
I love that. I was getting all excited, and I realized that we have people live on YouTube with us right now. So we're not just in LinkedIn, but we have people watching on YouTube. So Jason Miyochi said, how far back should a resume go for us experienced folks, especially if we're in the midst of a significant pivot? Lynda, let's go
Okay.
there first.
All right. So those are two questions. So never go back more than 15 years. And if you worked for a really kind of important name brand company, you can reference it in your summary of qualifications, but don't go back any further because it's going to age you, number one. And number two, nothing in any field that I can think of is still done the same way now as it was 15 years ago. The second thing is if you're making a career pivot. If you are making a pivot into something completely different, and I'm thinking of a client who was in retail banking, who got her degree while she was working in clinical psychology. I took all of the banking stuff out. I just referenced it. Prior to earning my master's in clinical psychology, I worked in banking. Because if someone's going to hire you in the field that you've pivoted to, what does this completely irrelevant job history belong on your resume? So I would leave it all out and just reference what you were doing during those times.
Let's see. So, Lynda, yes, I so agree with you on this. It's using the time to just develop any area of personal development is great, and it helps with self-esteem. That was Donna Luisa. Let's see. Keith
I always agree with Donna Luisa.
Can you hear me? You can hear me okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, you sound good. Mm-hmm.
Thanks for having this curated engagement experience. My question is for Heather or Marietta in terms of branding process and telling my shared journey of experiences. What would you have me consider in terms of a branding process that integrates community, business, and policy as a strategic advisor, health equity advocate, and social entrepreneur? Well, number one, I'm going to say that's a whole lot right there. I'm just going to say that. And I think, right, that's what you just said, like, wow. And I think that seems, I think that has Marietta like all over it. And so I think you need to be talking to her to be figuring out how all of this melds together. That would not be my space. Now, I do a whole lot of too out there in the world. But I try to be the key with me. I try to be on topic, or I try to use the same words when I'm describing things, because then the people remember me in that brand context. So I just do that personally, but I think it sounds like with all that stuff you have going on, which just sounds like some really good, juicy stuff, it needs to just be melded together. It needs to be brought together in a consistent way that kind of has almost the same theme or message throughout. And as Jason said in the YouTube comment or chat, he said, Heather's all about intentional leadership. And that is because I choose to use that language. And so everything when I'm talking, I say, and we have to be intentional, and we need to be intentional leaders, and we need, right? And so I use that a lot. And that is part of that brand. And it's an evolving brand too. So just something to consider. That's my 2 cents, Marietta. I don't know if you want to riff on that a little bit with
Yeah, just a little bit. I mean, I completely agree, Heather. And I think really it's also about narrowing down. I know there's people may have different opinions as far as getting a niche or not a niche, but the easiest, if I was to say this in the easiest way, is to try to narrow down your 3 top expert topics. What are your topics? So there was a whole lot of, like Heather said, but if you wrote them down, I'm pretty sure that there's something that's a common theme, as Heather said, between them. So think about your top 3 expert topics, because you want, at the end of the day, especially when you're on LinkedIn and you're sharing I know this is such like a buzzword, but your thought leadership, I'm going to say it, don't hate me. You want that people will associate something with you, right? So Lynda is an expert with resumes and careers, interviews. So when you see Lynda's name, you're going to know that she's going to be talking about resumes or giving advice. When you see Heather, she's all about leadership with heart, attention. So you're going to know that. If you see me, I'm more than likely talking about personal branding and LinkedIn. So at the end of the day, there's still a way that you can package this into 3 at most topics, so that you are very consistent in your messaging, and that when people see your name, they're going to associate it with the topic.
Yes, and it's funny because even like right now, I'm doing this, and I normally wouldn't have have guests on that would be talking about this. But when you think about my backstory, that I am an employee advocate, that I am the employee whisperer, right? Then you see, oh, Heather's having people on that would help employees who maybe have been laid off or furloughed. See how that's consistent with the storyline. And I think that's the key, is that you don't want to go off too much, because you will throw anybody who's following you or interested in your content, you'll throw them completely off if you go way off the path. So I'm not going to go there and talk about sewing or
Yes,
or
no
about
sewing.
construction.
Oh, but Heather, wait, because I was just going to say, I was going to use the word threading. So I'm sorry, but I'm going to stick with it, because it's up to us to thread when we talk about being intentional. Sorry, Heather. It's up to us to thread our messaging and make those connections for people. So to Heather's point, you have to make that connection, and don't leave it up to your audience, your target audience, to figure it out. We have to do that in threading and sewing and knitting and everything else.
Oh, I love that. No,
metaphorically speaking.
Yeah, now I'm gonna having that visual. Okay, so Mary, I'm not going to pronounce this right, but just give me grace that I'm at least trying. Akangbe. I know that's not right. I'm a healthcare professional and social entrepreneur, and would like to help my colleagues both to progress and think outside the box, use their experiences to pivot. I get asked how to a lot. Thanks. So I'm glad this has been helpful as far as like that thought process. Lori Bonsu says, Lynda, I had the pleasure of connecting with Lynda a couple of years ago. She was extremely helpful and impactful to me personally. She's a friend in my head. Great person.
Oh, thank you,
That's
Lori.
awesome. Isn't that cool?
Thank you.
We don't always know the impact we're going to have. And then on YouTube, someone says, I love the idea of just as Morning Sun Education. That's the title. So must be a company name, but I love the idea of entrepreneur. I wish more companies embrace that idea. In my experience, corporations are more interested in quiet cogs who make the machine work. Yeah. And me and like people like Jason, who is what he's talking about, the pivot. We're people who are trying to change some of that. We want employees to have more of a voice. We want you to be more prominent. We want you to feel more empowered. And so, but I'm glad you're here, and hopefully you're gathering us some insight as it relates to that. And then there is the Center for Soulful Relationships. And she says, I love that as I am shifting from label of a relationship therapist to bringing my skills to corporate. Ooh, that's good. We need to talk. That could be a good conversation to have, because I do think that everything in the workplace is about relationships. And so almost everything in the world is about relationships.
I'm just laughing because my own therapist, who I haven't seen professionally for a while, called me last year and said, I'm really burned out from private practice. Can I get a job in a corporation? And I said, absolutely. And we worked on it, and that's what she ended up doing.
Oh, awesome. And I actually, you know what? Center for Soulful Relationships, since I don't see your first name. I actually read an article. I think it may have been in the Wall Street Journal, and it's been probably a year ago, but it was about a woman who had done this exact same thing, and she was working with very high profile corporations and doing very well. So good luck to you in that transition, but I think it's going to be a fruitful one, and I'm interested in chatting with you some more about that too. Yeah. Then Lisa Jansen, thank you, Marietta, for mentoring those of us who are in the field of education and nonprofits who can transfer our skills using storytelling to tell how our journeys have made us who we are today. So I love when people give that positive feedback.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, now David Beaumont, he says, when you're building your brand, is wrong to overpost or share, etc., details about what your brand is? Do you get that? If you don't get it, I'll have him qualify it. Does that sound clear to you? You know what?
Okay. Please ask him to let me know if I'm not on the right path. But the 80-20 rule is something that I train about and I talk about often. The misconception, and that's why personal branding is such a dirty word, and people roll their eyes sometimes. Like, oh, I don't want to. I'm not a personal brand. I just want to market myself. And it's like, okay, well, it's the same thing, but don't use the word if you don't want to. I get it. But the key is, when you're building your brand, it isn't only about you and what you want others to do for you, to buy your services, to hire you, whatever your story is. It's about how you add value to other people. And it doesn't have to be your own voice. Sometimes in different, I've been a little bit quieter than normal with my writing, because the reality is that I'm an introvert, believe it or not, and I'm still processing a lot that has been going on with the pandemic. I haven't had the creative energy as much as I would like to, and I'm very honest about that. But the good thing about it is that because I've established my brand, I have people who pull me into conversations, which I'm thankful for, and I can share content from people who have a voice, who can say what I'm not able to say right now. So to answer your question, I usually try to go by the 80-20 rule. Focus when you're posting on adding value, helping, sharing information. It can definitely be from your voice, but also from peers, from colleagues, from people that you trust and respect. And then in regards to the frequency, what I always say is think about your target audience. What do they want to soak in, right? Do they soak in information? Is every day okay for them? Or is your target audience a little bit busy and maybe it's not every day, but weekly? Tune into the people that you want to connect with and see what they're liking, see what they're posting, how often they're reading and checking in, and then adjust how you communicate with them based on that. And that's a good way to get synergy.
That's a really good focus. I think that is an intentional type of thing, because you're tweaking in this process of pivoting. No matter if you're pivoting to a new job, pivoting to how you present yourself, it's all about iteration. So iteration in like an innovative setting is like, we're going to test this, we're going to try this. We may fail. Right. It is what it is, and I'm going to keep going. And so I think you have to, right now, all of us have to be in a position to say, we're okay with something not going so well, with a post getting 0 likes, or with a new strategy or course not getting much, because in the end, we may get feedback that there was another angle we needed to take, and we'll take that angle instead. And so know that iteration, the iterative process, is a part of where we're at right now, and even more so right now. Lynda, that was a question that came in for you from Cynthia. As a mature person, I find that companies may be age resistant. I love that term. Is there something you can recommend that one can do while applying for positions?
Sure. Ageism is real, and it's really hard to prove. It's really hard to prove. So you can age-proof your resume by leaving off your graduation dates, and also not going back too far in your, like that 15-year more or less rule. Now, once, if you get picked for an interview and you come in, they're going to see, I'm an older person too. I'm a grandmother, you can walk in and that could be it. The people doing the hiring are millennials. And as my own millennial son said to me once, nobody wants to work with mom or dad. So
that's interesting.
It's true though. So here's the thing: age-proof the resume. Once you're in there in an interview, even if there's a little like shell shock because they realize you are old enough to be their mom, at that point, but they've already been impressed by what you have in the resume, and you can win them over by showing you're not obsolete. And just once you're in that interview, strike the words, "This is how we used to do it," or "This is how," or "That's not how we used to do it." Like, forget that. Just be open and be, you don't have to dress like a kid. You don't have to talk like a kid. That's embarrassing and inauthentic, but be open. So age-proof your resume and lose any sense of wisdom that you think you carry with you just because you're older.
Ooh, and actually that makes me think it's been some years now, but I hired someone who maybe no one else would have hired. And oh my goodness, she was the best team member I ever had. And she was older. I don't remember. She was at least 60. I don't remember the exact age, but absolutely adored her. She brought an amazing skill set to the table. She just did things I couldn't do. And she just, she really filled my gaps. And so there are people that are like that are open, that, age is really irrelevant if you can fill those gaps, or you can add. And so I think that what I would do is just to to piggyback on what Lynda was saying, is to find, when you talk about find value, but like find what their gaps are. If you can go on their website, if you can look on Glassdoor, if you can look at reviews and things they've had, and you can pretty much quickly spot where their gaps might be, then when you go in, you may be able to offer some unique ideas that would help them see, oh, I'm going to be a gap filler too. I'm going to be someone who's going to come and basically fill a pain point you have. Right?
Yeah.
Perfect.
And there's room for everyone, honestly. As much as the workforce has changed, there's room for everyone. So you have to put your, state your claim, and not, come in there with the attitude of not like, oh, you think you're at a disadvantage, but almost have a confidence like, listen, I get it. I'm older, but this is what I can do. And I know that I can do it. And not in a way of like, I know I can do it because I've been around and I've been doing it, but in a way because I'm confident. People like that. And people just like people that they can work with also. So if you just show that you're a personable person, you're able to throw down and be adaptable, flexible, that's going to be an advantage compared to someone who may be younger, but that's not the case.
Oh, look, I don't know if you can see that on the screen, but I'm playing around right now.
Yes. And the font is nice and big. I love it.
I love it. So it shows, if you're still in there, can you see your face? Number one, I haven't seen a message since like 11:03 from YouTube. So anybody who wants to do a message, so I can make sure and see that you're actually still there and this works. But I'm able to just click it and unclick these different messages so everybody can read them when you go to YouTube. So the next live stream, we're going to play around some more on YouTube.
But can I just say something about intentionality?
Yes.
So apply for jobs with intention. So many people, especially now that so many people are unemployed, are getting this desperate feeling like, I'm just going to apply for every job that has my title or my profession in the name. I'm just like, my goal is to get 30 applications in this week. And that is just the wrong way to do it. You want to be intentional. And I tell my clients no more than 3 jobs a week. And then really go on LinkedIn and find people you might be second-degree connections with at that company. If you don't have any second-degree connections, look for the person who might be the hiring manager at that company and reach out to that person individually. But be intentional. Really know the position you're applying for and have a reason why you're applying for it. So, just like we ask political candidates, why do you want to be president or why do you want to be governor? Ask yourself, why do I want to get this job? And the answer better not be because I don't have one.
Because I need a job.
Yeah, you have to work harder on that. Okay, and then it looks like Cynthia says, if I'm finding that they're asking when you're graduated. That's that's like a application process. I'm like, that is pure ageism. Like, that is, how could you, when you ask when you graduate, you're supposed to be saying, how old are you?
Basically.
Probably
a legal way of
that.
The loophole. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd want to challenge it, but I mean, the average person isn't going to.
Right. I was just going to say, I'm not even sure that's legal. I've never, I've hired really thousands of people, and I got to tell you, I've never been asked that question as a job applicant, and I've never asked it. So I'd love to get some context around that. So if I didn't catch your name.
Cynthia.
If Cynthia wants to email me and give me a little more context, I might have some advice, but I don't like that.
Awesome. Well, this has been good. I have a feeling we could literally go on and on because I think there could be a lot of people that are interacting. I know these are tough times for a lot of people, including me, all of us. I mean, there's been contractions in business and weird things happening in business for us who are solopreneurs and maybe have virtual assistants or maybe just small teams. And there's also those who have been furloughed or laid off, and so it's a crazy time. But I would say, just like earlier when if you saw that where I got completely knocked out of my own live stream. And these 2 ladies, I love them. They kept going and they kept it, right. And you guys were there and I'm like, this is iteration. This is flexibility. We have to be like that right now. So thinking outside the box is kind of one of my last pieces of advice. Think outside the box. Don't limit yourself based upon what others say that your limitations are. If someone says limit you, you know what? Basically X that out of your head and move on to the next thing and continue to be thinking about that thing you want to have. I had someone told me the other day, that the desire that I had for on the amount of books that I want to sell coming up was just like, way unrealistic. Well, I don't really live in someone else's reality. I live in mine. And so it's about my mindset and knowing that that's where all of us are right now, where we can all just create the goal. It could be realistic or not realistic for other people, but that's what we want to do. And so if it's pivoting, if it's to have your own business, if it's doing a side hustle consulting, if it's just trying to get back to work and be in a good mental state, whatever that is, you can do it. So I want to, you guys can give the last two bits. If there's two bits of advice or something you want to tell those listening, you can go ahead and do that now. Lynda, let's start with you, Lynda.
Okay. What I'd like to make an offer to whoever is listening. I would like to offer 10% off my usual fee. And for the first 5 people who respond in the next 24 hours, I will include in that 10% reduction a half-hour one-on-one interview prep or job search coaching session. So that's what I think that's the way I think I can help people who might need it now.
And you'll see that again, scrolling across the bottom of the screen is her website. So you can always go there to contact her if that's something you want to take advantage of. And I really appreciate it. I have somebody, I think, as Donna Louise is saying, can we do this again? Like, can we please have this on here again? So we may end up doing that. Might do a second session now that we know too, now that I got smarter about what's going on here with YouTube and I can put all these comments on there.
And you know what, if you do it again, we should loop in Sarah Elk because she does the strength assessments.
Yes. That would be a great idea to bring all of you together. Yeah, I love that. Okay, so Marietta, what about you? Is there something you'd like to offer?
Yes. Well, I recently just launched my first LinkedIn course called the LinkedIn Level Up. And it's unlike any other course because it's not about necessarily how to set up your profile, but how to brand yourself, how to share your story. A lot of what we're talking about, how to make your profile, show your story, stand out, identify your key differentiators, and really just make sure that your presence is consistent overall. A lot of people haven't updated their profiles in years, right? Since the Brady Bunch. And now is the time to make sure that what you have on your profile is personable, it's easy to read, and it connects with your target audience. And that's really how you can have a profitable profile. I actually wrote it was featured in Business Insider recently about my experience of getting a half-day $5,000 speaking gig, literally because somebody found me on LinkedIn, was looking for a personal branding expert. So when you think about making money and earning money and really being able to make a living, whether you're an intrapreneur or entrepreneur, there's nothing wrong with that. Think about how you can make a cohesive presence that allows people to see how brilliant you are, and it shows that. And if I was to give one, I'm sorry, I'm long-winded, but if I was to give one piece of advice, I would say, just to add on to what Heather said, do not put yourself into a box, right? So there are people that are going to label you, but sometimes, especially if you have more than 15, 20 years experience, you can label yourself. And I've been in the game for 20 years, and I was a technical writer and an IT person. And instead of labeling myself, the way that I pivoted is by reinventing myself each and every time while holding on to those skills.
Yeah, reinvention is a big one. This is the perfect time to reinvent. I promise you, this time we're all like, oh, what are we going to do? And what's tomorrow going to bring and all that? We can't control that, but we can control how others see us and our actions and how we behave and our mindset. And so to this extent, I think figuring out how it is you want people to see you. I did the same thing. I did the exact same thing. I rebranded as kind of this employee person and this leader person, but I was in customer experience. And before that, I was a lawyer. So that takes a lot of changing of people's minds. And it's like a pattern that they see, and exactly what Mary was talking about, where people see you and boom, boop. And so immediately when I was thinking, resume, career transition, immediately Marietta. So, because I have to make sure I pair that with branding. So the two of those together, but I immediately thought of these two ladies. So you can be that person. It's not hard. You just have to be consistent, to David's point earlier, be consistent with what you put out there. Did you have something,
Absolutely.
Linda? Did you have something like you wanted to say something? No? Okay.
No, I'm just agreeing with you.
Awesome. Well, this has been really amazing. Next time we'll do this, and anybody who wants to, you can go ahead and subscribe to YouTube, because I'm going to try to do something with YouTube. Oh, good. Jason did see it. I asked him if he saw if you can see my chat in here. But what'll happen is I want to do it because then we can actually, for example, look, Jason said yes.
Yes. Hi, Jason.
I can bring people in from the different platforms. So that is super exciting. I'm going to put this on the screen. Oh, I love that. I love it. I'm in love with this. I'm in love with this now that I see these comments. So, all right, guys, I know I'm like, yeah, this is fun. We're almost approaching an hour. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for bringing your expertise. And I will probably take you up on adding Sarah to the conversation to help people who really need all of this wonderfulness right now. So,
and Heather, thank you for adding value to your community and doing what you're doing in a very selfless way. So definitely thank you as well.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
All right. Make it a great day, everybody.